the rain
because you're in the funny side.
kept everybody away today, huh?
It's not raining.
Oh, my lordy, three
It's not raining?
people.
Let's move this thing. Get out of here. Stick to business. Get out of here.
Everything. Okay, I love the big table, but I also don't have arms long enough to reach things at the end. Alright, okay. I don't think that's on. Anyways, we are officially calling this meeting to order at 6:35 PM this evening. And, we have a very small crowd tonight, so this should be pretty simple, but I will go ahead and list the reminders anyways. Please turn off your cell phones or put them on vibrate so that they aren't a disruption. Please be respectful and refrain from side conversations or speaking out of turn. You will have an opportunity to provide input on each item being addressed on the agenda this evening. Each person gets 2 minutes to speak on a specific agenda item. As we don't have 2 meetings this month because our annual members meeting where everybody gets to come and vote and do all the fun stuff is at the end of the month. This is our only official meeting of the month, so we're gonna treat it more like a regular meeting than a work session meeting. Therefore, we will have open forum at the end of this meeting. You will get 3 minutes to speak on whatever issues you're wanting. It doesn't have to be something on the agenda because it's open forum. And that will take place at the very end. There are sheets by the front door that you need to fill out and then hand to Jennifer. She'll write a number. Again, there's not a lot of people here, so this should not be a huge problem tonight. But, you know, in case more people come or you guys decide to fight over who gets to go first and second, she's gonna keep
I
track
got
of that
one
for
right
us. So anyways, we will go ahead and get started.
You
We
want one too, or
have,
just see
let's
it here?
see. Do we have any meeting minutes to approve?
Oh, boy, huh?
Old business, item A, common area erosion strategy. Trevor will be taking the lead to discuss what you have found.
Cool.
They have in their packets what your,
Cool.
like there, we just identify area, so homeowners can see at a price, not the house.
Okay, perfect. So we went through all the erosion areas that were listed that Copper State Engineering came up with. So we've identified technically 7 areas, but one of them I know we're working on in conjunction with Solera. So there's 6 areas that are major that need to be addressed rather quickly. What we considered major was anything that's going to be a liability. So that's number one part of it. Anything that's going to get worse extremely quickly, and anything that's in a very visible area. So it can be all of the 3 or just kind of a combination of those 3. So the first area we've got is 169-18, and that one is in Long Branch Park. So I tried to keep it simple with pictures. If we want more pictures later on, if anybody wants to take a look at it, you'll get a good idea. But the scupper area is completely eroded away there. A lot of people walk through that area to access the park.
Mostly children on their way to and from school.
Yep. And it's one of the smaller areas cost-wise to repair as well. It's a rather simple fix compared to some of the other ones. Any questions on that specific one?
I have one.
Yeah, go for it.
Trevor, I'm wondering, because in the contract, it does mention erosion. So I'm wondering at what dollar amount or level of work do you consider it as a part of the contract?
So pretty much anything that's not going to require a separate crew to come in, and something that can be done. General minor erosion is going to be, if we've got a small area, we can basically rake dirt and granite back in place. I would say an area that would take 30 minutes or less to kind of take care of. So yeah, wouldn't take any materials, any additional materials, wouldn't have to replace anything, just kind of raking and small shoveling, things of that nature. All right, the next one is 175-18, and that's going to be a little bit behind, actually, it's right over here, by Walker View. So you've got an area, same thing, it's pretty much washed out. You've got a pretty steep drop there. It's a little bit more expensive, so we're at $31.25 for that area to get completed. Then the one after that's 179-17. So this is a pretty extensive area, and I actually I believe, put my dot, nope, it's on the right spot.
It's right on the same pin as 169.
Yeah, that's why I was like, wait a second. They're both, yeah, they're both in Long Branch, and this one's actually gonna be kind of a two-parter. Tons of silt and dirt have washed in, completely covered all the rock in this area. Material-wise, it's not extremely expensive, it is pretty labor-intensive, because the rock's gonna have to be taken out, cleaned out. So this does wash all the way from the golf course, is where all this comes from. So it's traveling a pretty good distance. You've got a couple ways to look at this. We can fix this one spot. One thing we were doing is cementing the riprap, so it's river rock, pretty similar. We were gonna cement that in. The reason for that is it makes it a lot easier to clean in the future. So you don't have to pull the rocks out individually. You can either power wash, or depending on shovel, rake, and get any debris out of there. So it's more of a permanent solution. But you will still get some silt that runs through there because there is a big drainage.
Yeah, I was gonna say, upstream on the drainage, is there anything you need to do on that? 'Cause it's like a drainage canal that comes into this.
It is, so you could do like a riprap or river rock in that entire area, but you're probably gonna look at $50,000+ to do that area because it's an extremely long area. So your best solution is just to cement it in and just kind of regular maintenance of cleaning it like you would kind of a regular culvert.
And it's the only drainage area from the golf course, correct? So we couldn't ask them to reroute anything that wouldn't, okay.
And it part of it is gonna drain from Johnson Ranch property as well. It starts way upstream, comes down, there's another inlet, and then it kind of filters down. So if you jump to the next one, which is 18417,
Yeah, is that feeding 179?
it is. Yep, sure is. So that's about halfway through the drainage point, and that is on Johnson Ranch property. So that's where the water, again, is coming from the golf course, jumping over the sidewalk and going through. Our solution here is to put a drain pipe under the sidewalk and repack that, so it gives the water a better area to flow through. And then adding some river rock, just kind of expand the area just a tiny bit and clean it up.
And that will clean up any, and prevent any further soil erosion downstream?
No, you're still gonna get some because it's mostly dirt through there, and coming from the golf course. They don't have much granite, at the golf course. So you are still gonna get silt that's gonna come through, but it should stop it from washing your sidewalk away. That's the concern here, is with the way it's washed out, your sidewalk will be compromised. Yep, absolutely. Okay, 34133. This is at the corner of Johnson Ranch Boulevard and Golf Club Drive. It's kind of where that large retention area is. From what I understand, this was done a few years ago and redone when the road was readjusted at that intersection. They made it a little bit wider. I did look at some older Google images, and it does look like they did that. So just with the way they put the new road in, you've got erosion that's coming from that intersection coming through. So same thing, we want to cement a lot of that in, not the entire channel, but cement the top part to stop it. The whole thing has to be completely regraded. Quite a bit more riprap needs to come in, and we need to turn to more of a swale. So riprap the sides, kind of bring it into more of like a U shape or a V shape to let the water flow through. Right now it's basically just washing the sides out when it comes through there. So it's a little bit of a reconstructive on that one. So it's a pretty significant one. Like I said, add cement as well to that one. To prevent further damage, because you get a ton of water that comes through that intersection. And cars.
There's a nice pothole last week.
That intersection is,
Because of what the county did?
it's hard to say, because I think the county did that probably 3 or 4 years ago.
They did, it used to be more of a hairpin to make it right.
Yeah,
Fine with that.
yeah, it's hard to say. It could be, but I'm not sure exactly how the water drained there before. I mean, it was always designed for a drainage channel. My guess is when they put that curve in, they just kind of made it fit the best they could. But, we've noticed a lot of the drainage areas here had to be reconfigured even without any construction being done to roads or anything. All right, and then the last one, which is 6-4F, that is a pretty major one. You've got a ton of water coming through from that field that's back there.
Where is this?
This is over in the greens, but it's right off Ganzel and,
Right at the base,
Right where it's just
It's
about
our-
to hit the farm.
It's our
Yep.
last corner of the new
where
road.
the road didn't exist
Right.
previously.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah, it's right where the road stopped,
Yep.
pretty much. So you've got a lot, yeah, you've got a lot of water that runs through there. There is a tree that's been uprooted that is okay now, but ideally to do this project, it will need to be removed. Same thing, cement and fabric is kind of the answer. To stop it from washing away, you do have that wall in the corner that if this one's not done pretty quick, it could compromise that wall. Because the water is coming from that field, hitting that wall in that corner and washing that away. Same thing, it's just really labor intensive. All that riprap has to be manually removed. We can reuse a lot of it, so a lot of it we put back in and then additional riprap added. Fabric underneath, and that one's cemented in as well to allow the water to flow into that basin right there.
So,
If that tree falls, I can't tell what's under it. Is it gonna hit property of any
No,
kind?
it's not.
No, it goes right into that.
Yeah, it'll go right in the basin.
so, this is meant to be informational only, we're not voting on any
No,
of
we
this
should
now?
vote on it.
No, we would need to direct Robin what information we would want to be able to take action in April.
Like, can we
So-
go tonight?
Well, we
We're
can,
ready?
we absolutely can if you're
Yeah.
ready, yes,
If-
I'm
They're,
fine with that.
they're ready for that if you would want. The one thing that I did want to know real quick before you vote is, are there other severe areas? Or, okay, so this takes care of severe. And then when will you have the moderate and the mild put together for the board to see all of those areas? I know this was time consuming with monsoon, we were trying to get this done before.
Ideally 30 days if we could have that long, if not, I'll expedite it, if that won't work.
I'm just giving you grief.
Why are you still here?
Yeah, what are you doing tonight?
Our next meeting is the April work session, second Tuesday of April.
Full disclosure, the only thing on here that changed from all of our original bids for erosion is the price of the riprap. It's $10 more a ton. Not significant for you guys, but the type of riprap that we can use in this area, in these areas are more expensive than like what was used around Solera, to match the existing riprap in the community, so it's a different kind.
Okay, so the next question I have then, before we go formal, what sort of budget numbers do we?
It's within
45,
budget,
6.
100,000's in the budget.
Okay, I'm curious. And so then I've sort of one more question on this stuff. So if we move forward with all 6, just pretend,
Sure.
how quickly would they all happen simultaneously? Different crew, I take it?
Different crew for
Okay.
sure. Well,
How soon do you start, how soon do you finish?
there's a chance we could start in March. It might be April 1st, but definitely by the very beginning of April. We've got a couple projects we're finishing up on some other sites, and then this will be the next one in line. I think with all this, it's gonna take about a month to, I think it's about a month to complete all these projects.
Okay.
And then same thing, do pick tickets and all of that,
Which
same
one?
stuff.
Yeah.
Yep.
Do you know what order you would do these in?
So I would start with the one that we were just talking about off in the greens, just because of that wall. That's our biggest concern. Especially with the rain we've had, it's just still flowing through there.
It keeps changing too, that's why they have a 30-day on it, because every time it rains, these areas get a little bit bigger.
So my question then is, next, do you want a motion as a total, or do you want a motion for each one? How does this, what?
Last time.
Just do a motion as a total.
Yeah, we do like
Oh,
we did
do
the
it.
last time,
Okay.
all areas
Yeah.
for this amount.
So I'll make a motion that we approve this work to go forward with Gothic for the 6 identified areas. For a total of, does anybody have?
44-6.
44.6.
44.6.
Awesome, do I have a second?
Second.
All right, any further, Conan, any discussion, questions?
I would like to not have it wash out any further before we start on it.
Allison?
No.
Okay, yeah, I second Conan.
Do we want to, we don't need another bid on this, the numbers are within?
No, again, philosophically, what we did is we did a sample
Yep.
bid on that first project
Yep.
that gave us pricing, that demonstrated that Gothic was the favorable
Yep,
one that we wanted to go with.
okay,
I think philosophically, unless we're running into something big,
yep,
we wanna
I agree.
keep rolling this forward.
because they are also the owners.
Unless they come back
Okay,
and say all of a sudden I can't honor the, and Trevor's, you know, disclose the fact that there's, the riprap's more expensive.
Yeah.
We're gonna check that when we get the invoice.
Yep.
No, I think it's,
I agree.
That was,
I think
that was
we
the
have to-
intent
we
of the
have to
board.
move.
Yep.
Yeah.
We have to move.
Yep.
I think, we, as we saw last time, it cost us several $1,000s
Yep.
because we waited.
Yep.
And I don't
Yeah.
wanna wait.
I feel we
We've
did our
done the
due
slow part, let's
diligence.
move.
Yeah, it was the
On
right
those
thing, it was the
items,
right
you
thing to
know?
do, but unfortunately, the rain
Yeah.
came.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And we did our due diligence on that first set for this reason,
For
so
this
we were
reason.
ready to act on the next one without going through that whole dog and pony show
Okay.
again.
Right.
Just make sure.
Yeah, the only thing I'd like to see is going forward,
Yep.
give us the address so I can look, I want to be able
Yeah,
to
absolutely.
actually physically look at it, kind of see on the map.
Absolutely.
It's pretty tough to say, okay, exactly where it is, just give us a, reasonably
Major
precise
Yeah.
location.
Yeah, and I can,
So I can go and look at it.
and I tell you what, while I step out after this, I can put that together and.
That doesn't, I know where they are. but
Okay.
Just in the future.
Yep,
Okay.
absolutely.
Your map
Anything?
icons are out of date.
Let's get it done.
All right, okay, all those in favor, please raise your right hand. Oh, yep, so sorry, so sorry. Oh, okay, I don't usually do that. Anyways, do you have any comments, concerns, questions of the board on this particular item? Okay, perfect, thank you. All those in favor, please raise your right hand.
Hey, we got you before you went to
All
phone.
right,
It's important, we have to
motion
do
carries
that.
6-0.
We got you.
It's been a long week, guys. And it's
Again?
Tuesday.
Already?
Okay,
Again?
so next, harbor management, so tree plan, this is
Yeah,
also
so
you.
You love us.
Yeah, not bad. So come to these.
Okay.
Okay, so obviously we really want to get on tree plan with you guys. It makes such a huge difference. It makes our life easier, it makes your life easier in the long run, and saving trees. That's one of your biggest assets out here. Year one was essentially done. So we did that part of things. So ideally it would just be year 2 and 3. One thing out here that we noticed that really needs to be done yearly are your palo verdes and mesquites. Pretty much anywhere in the desert, they're the fastest growing trees. They can grow over a foot a week. Just to kind of, yeah, they're insane, just to give you an idea. This year we would end up doing the cottonwoods that are left, desert willows, live oaks, the sissus, and then the same thing, the mesquites and palo verdes. We did adjust this from original what we had, what we removed in the tree removal project.
Pricing the same as
Yep.
last time.
Yeah, so it's a little bit cheaper each year because the idea is the more they're maintained, the easier it is for us to do them. So the price does drop a little bit each year if you do this plan.
So the other thing I would assume is if something comes through, let's say this August, and wipes out 100 mesquite trees, obviously the price is going to change in 2020.
Yep.
When you've said 900 mesquite trees, you're going to be 800.
Yep.
So how do we make sure that we're sort of doing this number of trees? Like, that's in your report of how many you do?
Yep, so we'll stick to all these. One thing we're doing now with the GPS technology is we'll be able to go back and basically each tree we trim, check off on it that it was done with our new software. So that's the easiest way to do that as well.
And that was done with the last tree trimming.
It was not with the last set.
Are you gonna put it in there?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, so we call that trust but verify.
Trust me, I do the same thing on a daily basis. So
And do we have an outlook for that?
what was that?
Do we have an outlook of when we're gonna have that?
GPS.
Yeah. So next work session, if we want to go over that, we'll be good to go on it.
Okay, that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
All right, so what kind of motion do we need for
I-
this?
I'd like to
I got
make
a question.
on this one.
Go for it.
I'd like to, again, just approve 2019 at this point in time,
Okay,
and then we can see what happens
okay.
through the year.
And you're
And so
This-
my
this
motion
exact
would
thing.
be to approve the 2019 proposal for a total of 80, if I calculated it right, $86,956.
Does that change anything on the bottom line for doing?
It's all right. No, we can.
86956.
Yep, got it.
And that's as presented here, the mesquite trees, 922, palo verdes,
Right,
832.
as
live oak,
identified in the plan,
Yep.
was approved plan.
Okay.
Okay.
And this will come out of the reserve. The reserve is 82,358, so it's only $4,000 different than the reserve for 2019. That's the other reason that I said let's do 2019, because we're gonna have a reserve study, and let's see what comes out of the reservist process.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, Bob, anything?
No.
Tim?
No.
Michelle?
No, I'm good.
Okay, Allison, anything? No. Go ahead.
I wanna know what happens with the mesquites and palaveries if we quit artificially watering them.
So they're always gonna get water no matter what, because you've got plants and stuff that are around there that you have to water. So with the way the root structure is, they're still gonna grow like crazy out here. They're desert trees.
That's why I was hoping we could quit giving them water they're not supposed to have. Okay.
Yeah, we have to cut it off to the whole community pretty much, the way things are planted out here.
What's the timing, I'm sorry?
So for this one, we wouldn't want to start until probably May timeframe, right before monsoon, is the ideal timeframe for this to be done.
And it's only a one-time shot for all of these, or does it kind of go through the rest of the year?
So with this one, since there's not that many other trees, we would probably do it as a one-shot. But if you want it broken up, we could easily do that. It's easier for us to do it all at once with the species that we got.
What the hell, I don't know how it
Yeah.
works.
Yeah,
Okay,
it'd
so
be-
just one shot,
Yeah.
doesn't it? And then they stay that way, I mean, you're telling us the mesquites are growing a foot a month, so if you hit them first,
Yep.
by July, they're gonna be out of control, would you come back, would we?
You should be okay through monsoon. We'll cut enough off of them that will last us through.
So
That's the
then,
idea behind it.
again, my point is then, okay, September comes along, we've hit through the monsoon, do we have to do tree trimming again, or is that it, we're done?
You're done. You're done for the year.
And
This is
then they're on there, the
Okay.
same ones are on there for
Yeah.
2020. They just need touched once a year.
Okay,
Like May timeframe.
May.
We want to hit it right before monsoon, that way we can take them off right before that hits and give them time, yeah, exactly, give them time to go through.
It's like a haircut, you
Yep.
get super short, before pictures, then you have pictures, and here we go.
Exactly.
Okay. All
You've
right.
got kids too long.
I know, sorry. Okay, any other questions, board? Did we get everybody? Okay. Any questions, concerns, comments? Okay. All right, all those in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion carries. Alvin, okay. 6-0. I couldn't see.
Sorry.
It's
so
hard to
the other
see.
thing I'd say is obviously, once we've done the reserve, et cetera, it sounds like because you don't start this until May, this should be on our like February, March of 2020 to come up and look at your 2020 plan. So maybe something in your calendars, Robin,
Yes.
as a, go back to the drawing plan.
Okay. All right, next item is C, we do want action on this reserve study update. This was discussed at the February meeting that I was unable to be at because I was at science camp freezing. But I've looked over, you guys asked some additional questions, Robin came back with the answers, I've looked over all of that. But yeah, I don't know what discussion took place, so I don't know how much more we need, but I would entertain a motion so we can start to discuss.
So I'll make a motion for us to do a full reserve level 1 with on-site inspection scope type reserve study for capital replacement company in the amount of 86660. 8660.
During the second for discussion purposes.
Second.
All right. Coleman, you want to lead us with discussion, anything, questions?
Come back to me.
Okay, Allison?
No
All right, Michelle?
So do we know when, if we pull the trigger, we say yes, when will they start, when will they finish?
Was that not an additional?
He did not respond, remember? This person has
Doesn't
disappeared.
I can't find him. I've called every number for them. I've called what I thought would be an office number for them. I've reached out to Casey individually. I've looked online for additional numbers, and I am desperately
Wait a
seeking
second, the company
Casey.
won't respond to us?
Right.
Yes.
That's what it
Right.
says.
Yeah,
Oh,
in there.
The one you
sorry,
proposed is
yeah,
the
on
one
page
that doesn't
12.
answer.
Sorry, I didn't see that.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, that I have a concern.
They've got-
Okay.
I have a concern
Yeah.
that we may have a situation where he just
yeah.
not doing the work.
It did, yeah, I agree.
Okay. Well, that's why we're discussing.
Yeah.
So, okay, that would be my biggest concern with using them.
Yeah, so who would be another one then?
I'll make a motion
ahead.
that we we award the contract to father-daughter reserve for $68.50.
Okay.
Second, sure.
All right, so we'll continue discussion. Tim, what's your rationale? What's your
My
opinion on that?
rationale, couple things. One, I talked to them at the conference, at the expo. They seem to be willing to work with us. They seem very flexible. If I look at father-daughter versus associated reserve, one, clearly there's a big price difference. Secondly, if I look at the responses from associated reserve relative to things like erosion and wall work, it's very, this is the way it is. It's more, my impression is it's a more formal, not as flexible. The guy, even though it's only one guy, which is all we have anyway, he is an engineer, and he's done work before on walls and erosion projects. The formats are essentially the same. On all three of them, they're pretty much the same format. It's really gonna come down to, the associated reserve basically gives us one change after they give us the study. The father-daughter will give us three changes after we put in the study. So my thought process on this right now is we do a full study with their best guesstimate for walls and erosion, because we know we're not gonna get the stuff until June, or maybe later. And then, once we get that, is do a revision to update it as we need to. Hopefully, if the guy is able to do a decent job of guesstimating the walls and erosion, you won't need to do a revision. That's where my head's at in terms of this process.
So,
For the reason to go with him.
and I hear and don't necessarily disagree with that. My line of thinking was different. I don't like the price of the association reserves. I did like his answers more as, like, there's a system, a structure, he's an expert in his area, and he does it, and has that, that made me feel that's, I don't know, that just gave me some sense of confidence. And then I really liked his list of sizable, references may not be the right word, but like, he's done work in comparable places with comparable amenities that really, I don't know, made me feel a little bit more confident in his abilities to do this right, because we have had some questionable reserve things where we're not sure about this or that in the past, and I wanna just get one that I feel really confident that the person who was the expert, they knew what they were doing, and they guided us in the right direction, but I don't like his price. So, that's where I was at. He's a lot more expensive. I would prefer if he was a few thousand less.
Well,
But,
FD Reserve did say that he's a professional engineering firm,
yeah, but that's
So-
not a reserve firm. That's my concern.
but he has civil engineering construction experience.
And that's great experience, it's just reserve isn't that. It's
But
a
that's,
different
the
way of
job they
looking at it.
do is reserves.
Yes.
It's
Yeah,
just his,
I get that.
it's just his experience.
Yeah, that's just where I'm at. I prefer the
Yeah.
other company, I just don't like their price. I did not wanna go with capital replacement because they have disappeared. So that was a big
Yep.
flag for me. Bob?
I'm going with Tim's line of thinking. At least the guy is flexible, willing to listen and work with us, and give us a workable document. Nothing against the other one, just, I'm looking at money and the ability to flex.
Agreed.
Yeah, the money thing really, that's the biggest thing for me.
Definitely.
But I just feel like the association reserves may be the more qualified option. But that's-
I'm concerned about association reserves, answer to number one, and then the follow-up that connects back to it, where I'll give you a spreadsheet this time, but in the future, no.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, but
Again,
it's,
I'm talking flexibility.
yeah, but
we need that.
in there, it says like that they're going to an online base that we would have access to and could do your own scenarios and all that.
Online
I'm
basis.
paying a professional.
Yeah.
Why do I wanna do my own work if I'm paying a professional?
No, like
I'm
go
not
in there
paying
and
him to
play.
keep my
Because
data captive.
the reason that we've done it in the past is what the professional doesn't do is what is our contribution levels. he's gonna suggest a contribution level.
Okay,
Where we will start playing is contribution level
Mhm.
and increases in the future.
okay.
That's what we need. That's
That
what
in,
we-
that
that's
in
what
and
we
of
need.
itself.
That's what we need, and that's a board decision, that's
Right.
not a reservist
Right,
decision.
and like I said, that in and of itself, no problem, I'm good with that, but if we have to go back, like we're talking about for the, association, and they said, we're only gonna do it one time, no, we may have
Yeah.
questions, have to go back and say, can you redo this because of, no, I want some flexibility to be able to get that
I
information.
mean, last time with Casey, we did it, I'd say at least 4 or 5 times.
Yeah.
Because we again, we added stuff and.
Yeah. Number 3.
Changed our mind.
Number 3, I will not add or remove anything just because the board requests it. I'm sorry, who's paying your bill?
Yeah. I mean, then he says I have to
Yeah,
agree
he's-
to the item is appropriate for reserve designation funding. I want someone who's gonna push back and say, I'm the expert, you're not, and this doesn't belong in here.
Well,
That is something I really value.
that may be fine, but,
What if we
you
do
know,
something?
if we want it in the reserve, we want it in the reserve, it's our money. All,
I
the
get it.
community's
I
money.
don't, that's not how you use reserve, but that's just me. But at the end of the day, it
Yeah,
doesn't matter.
there are definite guidelines.
Yeah,
For what you can do in a reserve, but, and that's not to say these, I mean, I would hope these other people would be experts enough to also give pushback if it shouldn't be in a reserve.
Yes.
So, but yeah, I just, that's where my comfort was, so I said my piece. Allison, any more?
No,
Conan?
I'm just listening.
Okay, so, we have a motion to approve and a second. Everybody comfortable? I will go out to them. I want to make sure we are done. Because we changed the motion, so I want to make sure
Can you
we are on the
repeat the
same
motion?
page.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we have a motion to use FD or father-daughter reserve for $6,850 for a full level 1 reserve study. Okay, we're all clear on that.
Right, and we
Okay.
did not get the answer, did not say, sorry.
Yeah, it's in the original one, 7 days after they,
Okay,
just every signature.
good.
Okay, do you guys have any questions? Okay, all right, seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your right hand. All right, motion carries 6-0. Okay, next item, common area grant replenishment, that's a mouthful. Page 42 to 93, action needed, this is another topic that was discussed in that February meeting. Robin went back, got the answers that were requested, so we should be prepared to make a motion at this time to begin discussion.
I'll make a motion.
All right.
Okay,
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we approve Gothic to do the granite replacement.
All right, do we have a second?
second.
Okay, Conan, you ready, or?
Come back.
Okay, Bob?
No, I'm good, we've dealt with Gothic enough, I trust you'll work.
Okay, Tim?
Yeah, let me give you my rationale there. My rationale basically is, one of the things that we were concerned about is, are we getting the quantity of material that we asked for, okay? And they did provide, all of them provided the quantities of material. The low bidder, which was ELS, bid 5,481 tons. If you look at the reserve study calls for 6,549 tons. I ran the measurements through a few, you can go online and look at reserve calculators for granite, and they all come in the range, the average came at 6,477 is the average tons. So again, I would be concerned, the issue we had with ELS before was, in fact, did they give us the right quantity of material? And so I am concerned about that, so that's the reason I ruled them out. The next one up is Pro Qual, and again, I looked at, they only bid 4,745 tons, and their cost was $67 a ton, so again, I'm concerned, how are we gonna get the kind of coverage, especially since we're gonna be tearing this whole area up. The granite will be gone, you know, I think, by the time we're done here. And then, the third one up was was, here,
Desert landscape.
Desert Landscaping, Desert Classic. Again, they did bid, let's see, they, again, only bid 4913 tons at $68 a ton. So again, not that it means that that's not the right amount of tonnage, but because of the way we've had this thing structured, if there's not, the tons aren't used, we don't pay for it. On the other hand, if we come up short, when Robin does her inspection, it says it doesn't look like it's covering, we're gonna pay for that, pay for that stuff. So that's, and again, it's, Gothic is not the highest, is not the highest, it's within less than 10% of ELS in terms of ELS and Pro-Qual in terms of their pricing. So they're kind of in the middle. So I think it.
And they came close to.
And they came close, yeah. They came close to what the reserve. They're looking at 57 a ton. The reserve is 53, and we paid more than 53 last time. So it appears to be reasonable.
Okay.
Yeah.
Michelle?
Yeah, I was a little concerned with Pro-Qual, so I kind of eliminated them off the bat, with their tonnage pricing just being very high. Desert Classic the same as that. Yeah, that's all I had. I'm go along with Gothic. One thing I like about obviously what we've done with this, and now that we've got the right numbers, is the fact that obviously these people are going to do the work, but they also have to maintain the work. They're not going to screw us over because they've got a contract, and they do something wrong here, they're not getting renewed.
Yeah. And it makes their lives harder and
Yes.
more problems for them.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm kind of going with that, and it's worth, to me, I mean, it's not the lowest, but it's certainly not the highest. It is worth a little bit more to have that peace of mind that we're not going to have to be nickel and dimed.
Well, and if you add the difference in tonnage,
Mm-hmm.
they would be the lowest because the other people's would go up.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, if you adjust it for tonnage.
Yeah.
so yeah, everything you guys have said, that was kind of my line of thinking as well. Allison? Okay, Colin?
Yeah, I mean, everybody wants more per ton except for ELS, and ELS and Desert Classic and Pro-Qual are all lowballing us on material quantity.
Yeah.
And I don't think they're gonna provide us what we need
Yeah.
if we take what they're bidding.
And I mean, for me, I do appreciate that we've tested Gothic on things like erosion and other projects too, and, they've done what we've asked, they've complied, it's been a good experience, and that's worth something.
The fact that they've done all of this work and research, and then they've known that we've turned around and used it in an RFP
Yeah.
to go against them,
Yeah.
and the fact that they have been so competitive with it and reasonable to do it, I think also proves, I think this willingness to play in the sandbox with us, that's what we need, is partnerships.
Yeah, yep, so I think that's good. All right, anything else?
Yeah, this would be out of reserve, just to,
Okay.
Robin's out of reserve.
Yes, so the motion needs to, or the
Yeah,
minutes need to say that.
and it will be
They
from
do, because
reserve.
otherwise I can't use
Okay.
the account to have it
Yeah.
out of there.
Okay.
Jennifer,
Bob,
you got that? Make
Got
sure
it.
reserves on all
Reserve.
these things?
And
Make
it's,
sure
Got it.
reserves.
and it's for how much total? It's the,
369,246.
okay, reserves, yeah.
Anything else from the board?
Yeah, just, the traffic control question even. Some of these guys are this cheap because they specifically said, if you want traffic control, that's more than what I've put in my bid. It's a separate line item.
One more question for you, Tim. What was our reserve for this?
303.
Okay,
So
so
it's
we're,
it's over reserve, but not huge.
not too bad. Okay.
Because again, the adults is basically, they're bidding about the same amount of tonnage, but, again, it's prices of granite.
They've gone up.
Yeah.
As you can see, the prices of granite have gone up based on all these other ones.
Absolutely, okay. So it's reasonable, okay. Fabulous.
Any questions, comments, concerns on this one? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand. All right, motion carries, and that's to make sure this is out of reserves. The trees were also out of reserves?
Yes.
Make sure we got that? Okay.
Yes.
Was that it? Everything else was not? Okay.
Yes.
Those-
Okay, next is to follow up on that, polyline conversion. Woo! Same basic thing, you guys talked about it in February, I would entertain a motion so we can discuss.
Let's go. Still trying to get to it, sorry.
I know there's
Okay.
so many pages. Pages 94 through 130.
94, got it, got my pages everywhere. Okay, so let's do a motion so we can discuss. I'm going to go and say, for Gothic landscaping to do the poly to PVC conversion.
All right, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, and discussion, which one do you want me to start on, guys?
We need
Start
to
with
clean.
Bob,
Go ahead.
anything? Okay, Sam?
Tim.
I mean, Desert Classic is clearly the lowest.
Yeah.
My concern is, nothing against Desert Classic, but if you look at their price per linear foot is $234. Reserve says $325 in terms of what we pay per linear foot. And the other bidders are more in the $3 plus range. So, I mean, hard to turn down a low price, but we want to make sure we're gonna get the quality, we gotta live with this for 25 years.
It's a concerningly low price.
It's concerningly
Concerningly
low price, exactly.
It's- something's off.
I don't understand it, it should,
We went back to them and asked them to take another look. We didn't tell them where we were with other vendors' pricing, but did let them know that they were very low on price, and they took a second look and left it.
I mean, $1 less than the reserve is just, it just bothers me.
Right.
I'm feeling a little,
And I'm gonna say AAA landscapes out for double the price.
Yeah,
That's just,
they were way high, way high. Okay, and then Michelle, you have any comments, questions?
no, I think, come back on me on,
Okay.
please, sorry.
So for me, in addition to the things you guys have kind of already stated, and like we said with the granite, the reputable, we're used to them, all that kind of stuff, this being directly related to what they do in our community every day and watering the plants and having that kind of an impact, if this isn't done correctly, if somebody breaks something, doesn't connect something, all that kind of stuff, like, they're gonna be the ones who don't fix it. So if we use them, they're not gonna do, they're not gonna intentionally do anything wrong or even really negligently, because then they're gonna have to fix it regardless. So, the daily piece of that, I think, weighs heavily for me in their favor. Because the difference between, like we said, like Desert Classics, alarmingly low, concerningly low. The next one, Pro Qual, yeah, there's a big price difference, but to me, that difference is, well, Gothic and DLC coming close. AAA is way, way out of range for the other direction. ELS is kind of in there, but still higher. So it kind of came down to DLC versus Gothic, and maybe Pro Qual and Gothic kind of Eileen because of
It's
those
the
things.
lowest, it's the medium of those, but again, ProQual is something off on that one as well.
Yeah, and so with that being said, that, this irrigation is directly going to be something that they have to deal with the plants and plant loss and all that kind of stuff. Like, I feel like there's a little piece of confidence, I guess, that I have because they're on site. So, for what it's worth something to me, in my mind. Allison?
Does, what's the amount that we have in the reserves? Is it, I'm assuming it's
The
reserves?
reserve is $390.
So it's still fairly close?
Yeah, it's $424 versus,
35,000.
$390, so it's what? Yeah, 30, whatever, 30, you got it, 35,000.
So less than 10%.
That was my question.
Yeah, just based on the warranty line alone, I would rule out anybody but DLC, Gothic, and Pro Qual.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
And I agree, yeah.
that was the interest with Desert Classic, they weren't doing workmanship. If they had to come back, you gotta pay for the labor.
Sorry, not playing that game.
Okay.
The other thing I like about this too is the fact that for Gothic is you know, if they find something, or if we, as we move along, let's say, and we're doing walls and it comes into conjunction with the poly to PVC or something, they're sort of in our plan, they can understand where we're going with the whole, the 3, 5, 10-year plan type stuff, so if things need to be sort of redone or changed or whatever, I think having the people that are responsible for our landscaping, as you keep saying, is really important.
Right. Anything else, board? Okay, any comments, questions, concerns?
What's the time frame on this?
The poly line?
Yeah.
So we gotta do that before we can do the granite. We had this discussion, but now we bumped it out a couple months, so they can still start pretty quickly, right?
I think so, we probably need to ask them now, because I don't know if any of the projects are going.
Do you want me to see if it's out
Yeah,
there?
He
we'll
is.
poke, I'm pretty sure he is, he's waiting on us.
And how does the irrigation continue if we're in the summer period and we still need to do irrigation? And they're
It currently has irrigation, it's just changing the type of irrigation. So,
But
So
when
do it
this
phases.
is, but when this is opened up and changing, you're not gonna be irrigating that area, is that right?
that's why we're saying is that one of the things would be is they're involved with this whole plan that we have about reducing stuff. So if we wanted to sort of say, okay, stop on this and don't do this area yet because we haven't quite figured out what we're gonna do in that part, they're all involved in that as it is.
Also with that, Michelle, when they put in a replacement pipe, they would do it like we would do a gas pipe. They would put the new one right beside, and then just as soon as they've blown out the lines to make sure there's no dirt or anything else in there, they stop the water, cut the pipe, insert the new, turn the water back on.
And a lot of
Okay,
this is,
so it's
That-
not
that's usually-
period of
that is
time
usually
where
how it's
there's-
done.
Yeah.
In construction.
and a lot
There's
of this
very
isn't,
little interruption.
and a lot of this isn't, if we look at the pictures, a lot of this isn't in areas where we're planning to do much reduction. There's a few little pieces, but most of it is already hardscape, meaning rocks. And it'll just be a matter of maybe reducing some of the plants.
And no, I was gonna say, no plants around that.
Yeah, it's not like Pathfinder Park, that's not one of the areas that we're talking about, where
Thank you.
there's grass. What did you say?
He said next month and a whole different crew, so it won't be an interruption to regular.
Good. So that would be April. Okay.
You're good with,
Not yet.
you're good with that? Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome. All right, okay, so, all those in favor of accepting Gothic, please raise your right hand. Okay, yes, 6-0, motion carries. Okay,
Yeah, it was, would you get the total?
I was gonna say, I need
Oh,
a dollar
yeah,
amount.
sorry.
424, 579.
579.
and also comes out of reserves.
Oh,
Reserves.
Yep.
Okay, next, new business, for consideration tonight, appointment of board and committee vacancies. There's a document in your packets, that was attorney written, correct? Yeah. At our request for,
Page 131.
yeah, sorry, page 131 to 132. We had discussed in the past, making some more formal documentation pertaining to some of our policies that we already really do, but we want to have formalized, organized, and in a standard type format. So this would be one of them, and this one pertains to the board of directors' appointment of new board members for vacancies and committees, members to vacancies on committees. The board member one is document written, we have to follow that, we do follow that, but this document just includes that verbiage, and then also adds the committee verbiage, and it's mostly just saying that we will go out to the community when there's an opening, allow for time for people to say they want in, and then the board considers and makes their decision.
So why are we combining appointment of board and appointment of committee into one document?
Because I believe you're following the same process where you go out to the community.
Okay?
It's not something you just appoint, so it's just a process you're doing that rather than just appoint, you're going to go out to the community.
The same, yeah, I mean, as I read through it, it was
Okay,
kind of
that
like,
my question. Then my question is we've always, there was one document that says this, and it was strictly for a committee. Yes, the same process applies, but the difference is there's one for a committee, one for board. Combining it's fine. I just didn't realize
Yeah, in reading it, for me, it made sense because it was kind of pointing to, hey, this is how your documents say you fill the board position, and you guys are making a resolution saying you're also gonna fill committees the same way. So it flowed. That grammar doesn't seem right, but anyways, you get it. So,
Well, we point out, I'm sorry, I did not have time to read this one, but the board, the current board decides the new board member.
correct.
Okay, and then the entire board decides the committee member.
Correct. It's,
So, as long as we've got that stated somehow,
Hmm?
yeah,
okay?
that's what I read. That's how I interpreted it. Yeah, that's how I interpreted it. It's basically everything that we've said we do, it's what we've done in the past, it's just putting it into words.
Resolution.
Making a nice, pretty resolution.
It's pretty.
So, if the board is ready, we can go ahead and vote and approve and make this happen. If not, we can put it on the next meeting.
I move that we adopt this.
All right, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, discussion. Bob, anything?
No, streamlines, get it all done, let's get it done.
Tim?
I'm fine.
Michelle?
Good.
I'm good.
I'm good.
I'm good.
All right. Any questions, concerns on this one? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your right hand.
What about the audience?
I went out
Oh,
to
you
them.
went, I'm
Yep.
sorry.
Good try, good try.
All
They
right,
already had it.
Stuck it in there.
motion carries 6-0.
I didn't hear that, I couldn't
They've
tell.
been very amenable here, so, okay. Next is another same kind of situation, just another document. This one is common. Okay, so there's, on page 133 to 137, the common area facility use agreement. Then these are separate items, I would suggest that we motion on them separately, discuss them separately. But they all sort of work together in a way. So then the item C would be common area park rules, and item D would be common area vendor engagement agreement. So let's go to item B, common area facility use agreement. This is at, the attorney's recommendation is to have something like this on hand. Kind of a CYA really situation.
And we have
It's-
this currently, but it was in a wrong format, right? Yeah.
That's
Is there
fine.
something?
Yeah, I don't think we have
I
it.
don't think we have anything
Like
like
this.
this.
I wasn't able to find anything.
I never remember anything like this.
Okay.
So it's, you know,
about it.
He
Yeah,
wasn't-
we had
the
a
attorney
vendor one for insurance.
That's the one I'm thinking of.
There's one vendor, there's one out there, there's a vendor one for having insurance, I don't know if this is the same one or not,
There it is.
but,
Okay.
It's probably a little
but
more.
this is
updated.
different, this is total, this is a newbie.
yeah. So, there's some things on here, I don't know if we wanna, this one we may wanna table, just because there are little spots that we may need to kinda hash out. You know, what we wanna put, like how many guests exceed blank number of individuals, I don't know. You know, I didn't come tonight with a set number of individuals, because I was kinda interested to see what other people think on that. Same with some of these other fill in the blanks, but, or question marks or whatever, there's variations in here. There's a few of those on here. One thing to note is this isn't something that management desires to or is really even gonna be able to enforce. We're not gonna have people patrolling the parks and coming in on weekends and all, you know, that kind of stuff to manage. It is gonna be kind of an honor system situation, but there would be some consequences if you get caught having not gotten approval, et cetera.
But we'll make
Those
sure
people.
that homeowners are aware that, like, once you adopt it, and then you would have to decide if you wanted it mailed to every, or just through constant contact, and then, of course, we put it on the community website with documents.
So especially if I've seen people say, how do I reserve the park? And everyone says, first come, first served. Well, what if I want, to reserve it because I've got 100 family members that are coming? How do we go about
It's
it?
still gonna
And
be
it's
first
still
come,
not.
first served, though.
Very much in bold. The
Right.
reservation is not an exclusive use reservation, other owners and residents, all that kind of stuff. Because we shouldn't be in the business of
Branching out
controlling,
park.
as you say, the amenities are our backyards.
Yeah.
We shouldn't be controlling
That's
these
correct.
Yeah,
backyards.
so maybe we shouldn't call this a park reservation rather than park usage or something.
Park it out.
Yeah, it's not, you're not, if somebody comes first, and grabs that gazebo,
Yeah, that's
that's
it.
that's their.
Maybe park use,
Park
Park,
area
yeah,
use,
park
just like it says
use or
common area
something.
use.
Park area use,
Use or
so.
something, it's not,
Is this specifically about the parks though, or are we also
Just
in this
common
common
area.
area talking about gazebos as well, or pools, or basketball courts?
All
What
of
are
it.
we trying to do here?
Right, so that's why, so what I would propose to the board is that, since this is the first time, we're seeing
See
these particular copies, they're not as cut and dry as the last one was. Perhaps we take them home, go through red line thoughts, et cetera, and then bring your proposed changes to be hashed
To
out
the April
For the
work
April
in
session.
April.
Okay, I
Because
like
this
that.
isn't urgent by any means.
It
you know,
doesn't
it's-
need to include the pools though, of course, because we have separate rules for that, so whatever other areas. you
So
feel like-
basketball courts,
Yeah, the
tennis.
softball,
Yeah,
the
okay.
parks, remotas, all that.
Okay, let me do an action item.
So are we providing copies of these to anybody newly elected at the annual meeting so that they'll be ready for the April meeting?
Yes.
Should, yes.
And can we get obviously we've got electronic, never mind, moving on. Is this just a simple Word document you already have?
It is,
Can we send that,
Yeah, if you can send it in Word form, then I can do
Then we
the
can
editor version.
editor version rather than PDF?
I believe it's in Word.
Okay.
You want to make changes, you mean, or?
I don't wanna, if I wanna be able to go in here and strike
Yes.
things out,
Yeah.
I need to do it in Word, I can't do it in PDF.
Word track, no, something like that.
Tracking, it's tracking.
Yeah, yeah,
I'll send you.
Okay.
anyways, that's the easiest way to try and,
And this did come from the attorney?
It is.
What was what's his logic? Because it's not enforceable.
it's a seaway.
So the logic is, so especially, some of these people that were wanting to bring, one particular person wanted to rent, is it,
Fancy house.
but it's this big,
The video game truck.
thank you, I couldn't think of what to
It's
call
like a
it.
semi they bring in.
Right.
You go in and you sit and you play video games.
The cords and the vehicle parked there in this common area, everything about that, he felt that there should be something in place that helps homeowners understand that they need to make sure that they're insured for these things happening, that if they trip over a cord from this in our common area, that's not something that the association is responsible for.
So who determines who has the proof of insurance thing? Who determines what needs insurance and what
It's
doesn't?
just a document that lets them know they need to, and it covers the association in saying these things. As best as it can,
Mhm.
it covers the association, because number one, we've sent it to homeowners, it's out there. They're informed that they need to do this if they're going to be utilizing these fancy houses and certain things like that. Helps them understand that they need to be covered and insured to be bringing these things into the common area.
And so when we notify, we wanna make sure that we're very clear, so we don't have a brouhaha about what is exactly we're talking about here. I can see them immediately turning around and saying, you're now telling me I can't use my park.
Yeah.
So we will want, I'm just saying, when it goes out.
Where you're telling me I've gotta get an insurance
I've got
rider
an insurance to go play kickball with my son.
this, this no proof of insurance is required for this event. I wanna know if there a specific list.
Yeah, like, how do I know if I have all of these buddies coming around playing? So I think, just food
Yeah.
for thought, in the
So they
future,
don't
when we
bother
figure
you.
out how to do this, this is gonna have to be very, very carefully worded out.
Right,
I
and
agree.
we'll do our best. There will still be things that
Yeah.
they'll be, asking about, which is fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, and did you find the form that we have already for the
Vendor?
vendor?
No,
Okay, there is one. Okay. It must be in the 69 boxes.
Okay, vendor agreement.
I
I'll
wanna burn those 60,000.
I don't do that.
I'll
I need
put
some
it in
valuable
through
information.
the overdrive,
It has this
so
in it.
There was a vendor agreement, and
Yes,
it
there
did
was, yeah.
have,
Talked about insurance and stuff.
yeah, it had
like that.
insurance and had all kinds of stuff on that.
Because that was
I'll see
again, the reason we
I can find it.
put that policy in place was exactly for that, because somebody brought in a bouncy house or a truck or something.
Well, I know we're not to the vendor form yet, but I'll be curious as to how you feel about, the vendor form is the last one. And see how you feel about that in comparison to what you remember on the last one.
So
I'd have to
can-
look
I
at it
think
again.
on all of these last, what was it, CD&E, Park
BC.
Reservation, whatever, I think all of them, I need to look at them, even
Yeah.
though they're.
That's
Yeah,
what I'm
this is just
suggesting,
informational.
yeah.
Yeah, okay.
But what I would really, really like though is if, I'll get you the Word versions of these,
Of
if you
these,
can
yeah.
really redline everything and, be ready, like for the work session to have some
Yeah.
really good input on it. Then we can vote in that later that month, because that would give me time to pull it all together for the last meeting of April.
You asked for red line.
Oh, yeah.
And if we have questions, like, again, I would like to look to you for the guests, number of guests, for example,
Yeah.
and the list of events. I mean, I'd like to look to you guys for our guidance.
Sure.
In terms of,
What sort of things?
what sort of things,
Definitely
what
bouncy
would
houses.
constitute,
Yeah, when does this
what
apply?
would kick this in, exactly?
Yeah.
I
Playing ball with my son.
can see some big families just having a birthday party
Oh,
that'll
yeah.
have
Yeah.
100 people.
Oh, yeah.
But if they don't have a bouncy house, do we care?
Do we care?
Yeah.
That's
You
what I'm
know,
saying.
yeah.
I wanna play
Understand that,
softball with my 5 kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really not so sure that the number is something you need to list, quite honestly. It would be more about bringing a vendor in. To me, that is the most important, is
Okay.
the bringing a
Then
vendor in.
that's what we'll have to
Yeah,
make sure
I'm
we
just
stay.
going by what was
Yeah.
in here.
Sure.
That's all.
Cool.
No, exactly, Tim. So, I'll look at it as well, and if I have some more suggestions too, I'll redline.
Good.
All right, so B, C, and D, do we have consensus to
Table.
redline all
Yeah.
and come back in April?
Yep, that'll be,
Then we'll work through it, either vote that night or vote the following meeting after that.
the
So,
gentleman has a question.
yes, so, okay, board good on
Yes.
this? Okay, what you got for us?
To be clear, it might sound somewhat technical, but what you're asking for in these common areas is not an agreement, unless you're going to ask the homeowners to agree to something. These are common area rules that you're putting into effect.
Guidelines, rules.
Yeah.
Don't tell me that it's an agreement that I haven't
Actually,
signed to.
we do have signed. If they're going to do a vendor agreement, there is actually.
No, for vendors, absolutely,
Yeah.
I understand that, and a form for agreement if you're going to have an
An activity.
outside
Yeah.
activity come in.
Yes.
That's an agreement, but for general rules, that's not an agreement.
Yeah.
And that's.
And that's a separate
The same as I signed my documents, CC&Rs, okay? And in the past, I've heard people say, well, we've clarified them. Well, that's a change. It's clarification, but if you're changing the things that I signed to, that's a change. Okay, just
Well,
technicality.
On that technicality, this one page is rules and has no signature line.
Yes.
Okay, so, all right, we've made it through all those, so then new action items from the meeting. All right, back to the top, common area erosion strategy, we are going to go ahead and move forward, I've already signed, the paperwork, so we are good to go on those 6 areas, correct?
Yes, we have.
Okay, arbor management, we've agreed to the 2019 schedule, and, I'm gonna sign that one, so.
I'll get you
Okay.
clean.
All right, and then we will move forward on that. So then reserve study update, we have chosen who we're gonna move forward with, you'll reach out to them and get them started,
Trials and doors.
and we will
I'll get you clean.
get that one, okay? And then common area granite replenishment, we've chosen Gothic, also for poly PVC, then you'll get me the documents on that too, we'll get that started ASAP. And then the document to appoint board members and committee members is been approved, so we'll go ahead and make that officially part of our documentation. Then these 3 items aren't really your action item, but more the board's action item, once you get us the Word
Okay,
document.
that's what my task is,
Yep.
to get you the word out.
So Robin will get us the Word document for those, we will submit back to her what we want to see changed and be ready for the April meeting. Did I miss anything?
That's what I have in mind.
Okay, we're all good? All right, perfect, so now we have open forum, and this way. Okay, thank you very much. All right, Greg, you have chosen to address the board.
We're here.
Which one's Greg? Greg, please stand up.
All right, your 3 minutes starts now.
Quick background, from time to time, we leave the community for 3 to 6 months at a time, and often we are in places that are extremely remote with no possibility of snail mail or USPS. We do have ability, no matter where we're at, to get email. Earlier in January, or actually in December, we had discussed painting our house. This year, we were going to paint the house. we received a letter, postage, in mid-January that said, you have to paint your house. By the time we got the letter, we were given 3 days to paint the house. Totally impossible. Went to the office was, yes, we understand, we just wanted you to come in. For me to get a letter demanding that I come into the office to talk to them about something doesn't make me happy. I know a whole lot of other people that were unhappy about it. But we'd already planned on painting the house. So we went in, got a copy of what we could paint the house. We went in and on January 30th, we received authorization to paint the house in these specific colors. No problem. Mid-February, house was painted. We came in to get a security door that we put on the day we moved in approved. That seemed to be no problem whatsoever. We haven't received back the paper for it stating it was okay, but we assume it was. At that time, we informed the office that we had painted our house. On March 4th, we received a letter that said, you're in violation, your house is painted the wrong colors. Now, I understand the request to paint the house might not have received in the office to match up with painting. Here are the color patches that we received from the paint store. I went and put a dab of paint that we used next to them to demonstrate that it was the exact color. The explanation that, well, our request to paint didn't make it to marry up with having already been painted is interesting in that if you have to process so much paper that you can't catch up, perhaps you're doing it wrong. It's been, is that my 4 minutes?
It is, but yes, keep going. As long as you're quick, we can continue.
But now, had we taken off, which we had already planned on being gone, we would not have received this for possibly 2 months, way past time. If you cannot email infractions, how am I supposed to reply in a timely manner?
We're actually working, this question just actually came up at corporate. We're hoping that there will be a way to email violation letters. As managers, we're crossing our fingers and hoping that comes.
You know, I heard that exact same statement when you came on.
Well, I can't promise
Yeah,
anything.
I understand you
when
can't.
that will happen.
I'm letting you know, this is making life extremely aggravating. And I have to say that in talking to my neighbors in my neighborhood that I talk to, they're extremely unhappy also. Absolutely, our house needed painted. Absolutely, I don't mind getting a letter that says, this is the year we need to paint, and perhaps you should look at your house to do it. But to receive a letter that says, you have to paint your house in 3 days, and then to receive a letter that says, oh, by the way, you painted it the wrong color, even though I painted it in accordance, either the person who did the inspection doesn't know what colors are authorized, or he's colorblind. One or the other. Otherwise, it couldn't happen like that, could it?
No.
So I'm not hollering at you. I'm just trying to explain that as a homeowner, please be kind to us. We want to be kind to you. I don't want to holler. I don't want to get mad. But it becomes very difficult for me to feel comfortable going and doing things that we've worked our life to be able to do when I'm worried about accruing fines for information that I don't have a clue that I was even in violation of. We want to keep our house upright. It's our house. We're proud of it. We want to keep it good.
And it sounds very frustrating. I absolutely hear that, understand that, and can relate. And we will,
It was taken care of in the office, and it's been great, but for me to have to go to the office every other week and explain something becomes very frustrating.
yes, I hear that. I'm very glad to hear that it was resolved in the office and that was a good experience, so that makes me feel better, but I am sorry that you had to deal with it in the first place. And
What I'd like to say is, what had to be done has to be done, but the implementation of the way it was done was extremely poor, in my view.
It's standard, so we can't really do anything about your mail getting to you. But what we can tell you in the office is we want to work with you when something like that happens. The board just recently approved the timeframe to a 15-day rather than 10. I know that still wouldn't have given you a lot of extra time, but it is a board decision that is the timeframe. So the only thing I can maybe suggest is that you have someone checking your mail periodically for something that would.
It's not possible.
Okay.
Our mail goes from here to Florida, and then from Florida to wherever we happen to be in the world, which is usually out of the country.
Yeah.
And we can be gone for 3 months.
Right.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, it's just,
I spoke to your wife yesterday.
I understand.
Does it- Yeah, and I told her that we'll make note on the account, that if anything, we'll try to call you guys, but.
Our phone doesn't work.
Yeah, so I
We're-
told, we've kind of talked about, we'll keep an eye on it, and
What does work, email?
Email works. I
we
can get
can
email
we-
anywhere in the
yeah,
world.
and I think we verified your email, right?
Yes.
I believe, did we?
I'm pretty sure.
I think we did verify your
I'm pretty
email, that
sure.
we would contact you the way we could contact you if anything urgent came up or anything at your house.
And please, I'm very sensitive. Okay, my background is in aerospace. And I'm very sensitive to when someone says, this is standard, or this is the way we do it. If the way we do it is standard and it's not working, then perhaps we should look for a way to do it that does work.
We did ask compliance, theirs was the first letter that triggered when they started doing more paint letters out there, that I asked them to put it out 60 days, which gives them time to call us, hey, what do you want to do? Do you need 3 more months? Do you need 5 months? What do you need to talk about it? So their letter triggered us for me to bring that up with compliance to say, the 10 days doesn't work, because Johnson Ranch mailing, first of all, gets to them on the 10th day. That's that,
If I get a
so
letter,
I've asked
and it gives me-
compliance to move it out on painting and those kind of.
Absolutely,
Yes.
we need
Yeah.
to. The other thing is, painting isn't like a $10 project.
Right.
exactly, if you give me a
And
letter
we give them the
that a
60
bush
days
is
to come
bad,
and talk to us. Come
That's
talk to
one
us, we'll
thing.
talk about it, if
the
we
bush
need
is
6
one thing, to
months.
paint something
yeah.
else.
Yeah.
Right,
yeah.
And I like your idea about the email, the fact that I know a couple of winter visitors that do what you do, come here for the good weather and then travel the world the rest of the time. The only way to get them is through email, and they check in once a week. So, I mean, that is something I think as the board, we will hear that and figure out, is there a way that perhaps you can sign up for, this is how we want to be communicated to. I don't know the legal, I can't make any promises, but it's, we have changed technology, there's definitely,
In the past,
it's something to do.
in the past, when I received a letter about something, I replied, I got it by email, and I replied by email. And I realized that was in the past, but that worked.
Well, we want to work with you as well, and we appreciate you bringing it to our attention, and we'll look into trying to see what solutions we have.
Yeah,
It sounds like for now, you've got an arrangement with Jennifer that should
Like
hopefully.
you said, a
Stop
bush,
this work.
3 days,
Yeah.
no problem, I can rip
Yeah.
out a bush in 3 days. But to paint a house?
Yeah,
The
that's.
paint one's more, and we know that, clearly
It's just when they go out, they do it, it hits that 15-day, it automatically does it, so I've asked them, you've got to consciously
Manually
remember
change.
to note to change the compliance date.
Yeah,
So-
there's one thing I do want to share is that there's a lot of homeowners. So if it happens again and you go past a time frame, especially since we have a note on the account, say we miss it, we don't put it out far enough, we've got the note on there which helps us help you too, if that makes sense. It's also a lot easier to share with the board. They travel, they came, and they gave an explanation. So it's not that we don't want to work with you. And ever so respectfully, you know, we will always look for a way that we can change the process. That's why our company is looking at having a way to email these particular documents out. Of course, this is just the manager brain. The moment, you know, you start suggesting, I'm thinking there's 6,000 homes times 2 people in those homes. It could be up to 12,000 people that have a specific, special way that they need something done. That's more staff, that's more, but on something like this, when there's a note, we appreciate that a homeowner does that, so that we can at least have something to back, you know, what you're doing. It's something to think about. That's why we as a company are trying to get this to an email process. And hopefully, Jen, you were there.
It's still gonna have to be a mail process because we don't, not everybody has an email address with us. And we find we get tons of rejects,
That's,
yeah.
I
They're
understand
old,
that, but
yeah, emails. Yeah.
one doesn't
Working on it.
preclude the other.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And you know,
I agree.
maybe it is as simple, but quite honestly, as we're thinking through this, as, you know, if there's an email on account, emailing it. The biggest concern is that, yeah, it does add time. That's all I have to look at, because we are already tapped out. Like, we scramble through our day. So, I mean, it's something that we will definitely look at. I like it. We were hoping it'd be easier just through the system, because it is a literal next step. And we've done over how many, like, over 2,000 violations sometimes. So,
Well, and when you send me a violation that isn't a violation because the
That,
inspector
yeah.
was colorblind, you're spending money.
Bob, did you do that?
No, I didn't do that one.
Obviously,
He's colorblind.
I'm colorblind.
you
But we
make
don't
sense.
have him
No,
check it.
that
You make sense.
I don't check that.
You know, out of the violations that I've received, I think 3 out of 4 were not correct. We received a violation for a bush that was dead and we were to rip it out. And when I went out to the bush, it was green, sprouts, and telling me, "Don't kill me."
I lose sleep because I think if we had left a week earlier, we would have gotten a letter. I think it's according to your process, it's 45 days out. We've gotten a $250 fine. We still would not have been home. We would not have been aware of it. 30 more days, we'd have got another $250 fine, I think is the understanding. And then another 30 days would go out and it would get turned over to attorneys. All the time we're gone and he'll know nothing
To
about
be
it.
clear,
That would be your process.
We can be on a sailboat and we can be 100 miles at sea.
And that's why if you've got other people that you know that have like a situation like you do, as I said, I know I've got a few friends that do what you do, wander around the world, and they've told the office, this is how you're gonna reach me. So if you've got friends that need that sort of thing here in Johnson Ranch, tell them to call the office and talk it through. It's called communication.
Yeah.
You know, I was out for an entire month down in Australia, and I received a letter. There's no way I was gonna be able to do anything from there.
We love
And
it.
I called them and I said, look, I'm not gonna be back for another 2.5 weeks. Can it wait? When I get back, I'll come into the office, we'll talk it out, we'll figure it out.
We're not gonna have a phone either.
No, but again, it goes back to if you can get to the email.
Yeah, if you can get to
You
the
could-
email
you
and
could-
say,
Yeah, but
I'm in Jamaica.
if we don't hear anything on the email,
Exactly.
there's no reason
No,
to
no,
go.
no, we understand what you're
don't know,
saying.
we can't
Yeah.
respond.
So, it sounds like we've resolved
Your
this,
issue.
yeah, this particular, but now that you've made us aware of it, you know, it's something that we will definitely be working towards.
Just to add to your thinking is all we're trying to do.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, that's perfect, that's exactly why we do this, so. All
Thank
right,
you for the time.
anything else before we leave?
Yeah, I've got one that
Okay.
I'll be bringing up in the future. When a homeowner came to me, there's a
Oh, the free
group called
libraries.
Free Library.
Oh,
Where
Mr.
you can
Hess?
buy these little kiosks.
Mr.
Corey
Hess,
was
that-
looking
Yeah,
into
Mr.
that.
Hess came to me.
we've
exactly.
already got that same one, he
Yeah,
gave that to me.
Yeah,
Yep.
I sent an email to Robin, and basically
She's
I want to
looking-
get this on
Yep.
the board for the future. They're only $250.
Yeah.
these little kiosks that are nice, you can do it yourself if you want to, but. you
They're
can
thinking the
actually buy 'em.
pools and then the
Have it in
HOA
the pool
office.
and the HOA office, and it's basically you people put books in there that they want to let other people use it. Just
It's like a take one, leave
Take
one.
one, put one, take
Oh,
one.
cool. I like that.
Corey,
Yeah.
I know Corey mentioned that as something she wanted to try and implement this year through lifestyle, so
Yeah, so
bringing
I
that up
just
is a
wanna
great
make sure
idea.
we
Yep, I
This,
gave her
uh,
that exact packet that he handed to me,
It's really
so
nice.
she's got
Yeah,
it.
okay,
Yep,
but
she's
yeah, I
got
know
that
she
same
did.
one.
I know he did, I
That's
just wanted to
very
bring it up to the board, because I know you had a
It's,
copy.
yep.
So we've got some weatherproof
Put
ones
on the
for our 30
future-
rainy days.
Future agenda for, it's not a big expense, it's something.
Yeah.
Oh, I like
They're a cool idea, they're
They're
coming
cool,
all
and
over the
it's
place.
the thing.
Boy
is-
Scouts have done them for
Yeah,
places.
well, this thing is really cool, because I mean,
Yeah.
it's just,
Yeah.
there are 9 different types, styles of kiosks, and
I love the idea. The only concern I have with them, only because most recently the vandalism it's skyrocketing. So I would love to do this, I'm just hoping that it doesn't become a part of that. Mark would even be able to tell you a little bit more, I mean, not that we need to right now, but the vandalism in the community has just been incredible. And we're trying to figure out how to share this with the community. So if the board has some ideas too, we're trying to put our heads together and come up with something that we can do. Mark, what's some of the most recent, I don't know if you saw the white fences that were just
Yeah,
demolished.
I did.
Right there on Highway, the red road,
Yeah.
it's about 88 linear feet of fence was kicked in.
Can't hear you, babe.
What else has been come over and tell them what else has been going on for
The
vandalism.
Highway and red road,
Yep, my house.
about 88 feet of lineal fence was kicked in. If we take
It
pictures.
was just smashed in.
Smashed in, you saw footprints.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody gets kicked in.
So he's got
A lot of
a,
graffiti in the tunnel, right going to Twilight Park again. It's over there.
Then you had the trash thrown around.
And the trash thrown around, we just took all the trash cans, smashed
when
them.
does this start happening?
It took off maybe a week ago.
Spring break.
Spring break.
Spring
Yeah,
break.
Spring break.
We talked
Every
about
spring
this.
break.
right,
Yeah.
so
Every break, you're gonna have issues. You need to
summer's
get park
gonna be crazy.
monitors out there, you know.
Well, that's why we brought it up,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
we didn't know if, Mark was asking me about extending hours, for park monitors, and because the difference, between what we would maybe pay them for the hours that are there versus the vandalism, that's not all. I mean, the Ramadas, I know, well, we've got one outlet that Mark, he just cannot figure out what to do for the fix, because we fix it and the kids tear it off.
They
and
ripped the
pull all
outlet off the
wires
wall
out.
again and,
Then take it off.
well, yeah.
And
Just
don't-
get
Take the damn thing
Don't
down.
fix it. Again, things
Except
that have
when
been
they
done,
need it.
again, this is historical. We get citizens on patrol out here. We let them know that we like to have them come out extra during this period of time. And it's always during those period, and we have extended the hours for the park patrol.
We also put out there that we had a, turn in, basically for people that do graffiti and stuff like that, if you, vandalism award, if you,
So, witness.
silent witness.
Yeah, we have a
$1,000
$1,000
thing.
award
That's a-
for,
There's a policy.
it's a policy, $1,000
We have
policy for vandalism.
Yep, absolutely. And also the other thing is that
But the
telling,
extended hours, I need to know what you're open to on extended hours, because
What do you
We're
need?
already
Well,
up to 9.
we noticed there's a group of about 7 kids that, we call them the hooded kids, because they always put their hoods on when adults come around. They seem to be right after the buses 233 let out, so they get into Pathfinder area and Indigo. So they seem to get into trouble around there, and we think they're the ones vandalizing the playground equipment there that keeps getting vandalized. I have a homeowner who can't get their names and can't get them because they put the hoods on. But it's about 2:30, park monitors come on at 4. And so we're thinking we need to at least move to when the buses start letting out, to when, before mom and dad get home and they have to go home for dinner, and then they come back out later on that night.
I mean,
So-
or initially, just change the hours of the park monitors,
while,
bring them for a while.
Yeah.
And
And then summer,
and
we're,
see- and see what happens.
I think they'll sleep in till 11 or noon,
Yeah, and so
probably.
change the hour. Again,
Yeah.
the purpose of the park monitor was not be rigid in terms of when they should be there, is to have some flexibility. So look at not just
Open it
add hours, but changing hours also.
Well, the other thing that we're really working on, Mark and I are working on too, is having the pool monitors expand their work area.
Yep.
So they will be walking those areas more, and they're there until 9. So that's gonna help, but, we might need to just back it up, like, earlier in the day, have them, come in just a little bit earlier during spring break and summer.
I mean, I don't, like,
During summer,
most of the time,
It
there's
could be
no one in the
full-time.
pool, and there's someone sitting at the door, why,
No,
they
we
could
are-
be walking
we
around.
are utilizing them
so,
for that.
We told them to get out of the fence,
Yeah.
walk around.
Again, bring them in earlier, and if they go home at 7 o'clock rather than 9 o'clock for the pool, because you bring them in 2 hours earlier, that's,
Or just,
I think
just
it's-
schedule
it
so you
makes more
got them
sense.
flexible.
yeah. well,
One at the beginning, one at the end.
Yeah, someone to
Okay,
close down,
we'll-
someone to open.
We'll think on that one, come up
Okay.
with something.
And
Alright.
promote, I think you need to go out there and promote, two things. The fact that there is this vandalism out there, and if you don't know where your kids are and they're doing this, and we find out it's your kid, you're going to be paying for it. And by the way, if we don't know who your kid is, the community pays for it, meaning all of us pay for it. I think something in constant contact saying, start monitoring your children needs to happen. And then also promoting again the reward for turning in
Right,
vandals.
$1,000.
I mean,
It was up to 1,000.
It was
Yeah,
up to
look,
1,000.
find the policy.
Policies.
It's there,
I'll
there is a
find it.
policy.
But I think making them aware that they're out there destroying stuff, they will get the bill.
I know, I just think.
And if we don't find them, we're all paying for
Are you
it.
offended if you get a letter like that?
That would
It's
not go
just
over
in
well in my
general.
house, no.
I'm sorry,
Because
but
I
have-
do watch my kids, and the implication that I don't, even though I let them go to the park, because they're old enough to walk to the park, that's a fine line, and I'm not the easiest to offend, but that would be crossing a line if that showed up in my house.
Well,
The verbiage would have to be very
Oh.
Oh,
specific.
you have to be softer than I am, but you have to say something along the
Yeah.
lines of,
When
you need to.
Yeah, but like when you've got two
Yeah,
working
yeah.
parents doing everything they possibly can, or one single parent household working, and you're implying that they're not doing their job as a parent because their kids are out there, like, you're gonna offend people. You're gonna have an outrage, I'm just saying.
Well, I'll work on,
Well,
Well, I'm
Unfortunately,
outraged having
Brittany-
to pay for 88 linear feet of fence that a kid kicked in.
Keeps kicking
And
in.
keeps kicking in, and the fact that they keep destroying the playground equipment. I am offended by that. I know your kids are well behaved.
Well, they better be.
They
but I
better
don't
be,
even-
but if they're not, if your kid's hanging from a tree limb and breaks the tree limb, guess what? He's a vandal. I don't think he'd do it, but there it is. The point is, I'm offended by it too, so.
well, and it has to be
If you're
proactive.
turning your own
It's not just.
I like that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying.
Just
you
ask
know,
them for a friend.
Just don't word it in a way that implies
like
that
your
they're not
thinking.
doing their job as a parent. That's
That's
not
how
gonna
she
go over
does the
well.
word, and I don't.
I won't word it that way.
Yeah.
You
All
word
right.
it nicely, but you get the gist behind it.
All right.
I'm sorry, just on that really quick, I just think it would be a little bit better to maybe not even approach the we know that your kids are doing it, because we don't know that kids are doing the fence necessarily. I think if you said to the community, this is happening, and you showed them pictures and people recognize the area, people would start looking out and just bringing that information of this is happening. And there's rewards for letting us know who's doing the vandalism. Just putting it out that way would not ruffle feathers. We all need
You're
to
gonna get
help.
ruffled feathers no matter what.
Yeah.
I think you can do it just by saying, I didn't know that was happening. Hearing that's happening, I want to watch around for it. So I think if you just tell other people, this is happening, here's some
Maybe to
pictures.
Reignite neighborhood watch. I haven't heard of it.
Have a good
Written
time.
down.
All right, okay, meeting's officially adjourned, 8:03 PM. Thank you all for coming and for your inputs.
We'll get that fixed.